Verdant Moon is a Roblox RPG game based around exploration, PvE, and looting. The game is set in a world where the moon has grown verdant, giving rise to different creatures as a means to punish mankind for their greed and constant taking from the world. After reaching prestige on my alt account and goofing off various times in this game, I thought it would be a good way to send off this game by making this video, considering the main developer of the game has sadly retired, meaning this game will not receive any more updates. I hope you enjoy this progression as I take you through the 7 days that I spent in this game. Let's go. So I started my journey at the Grey Garden at level 2 for some reason. I immediately ventured into the Silver Woods with one simple goal in mind: get to the cliffside cabin. After a bit of exploration, failing to find barely any loot, and fighting off a few twigs, I finally made my way onto the elevator that will lead me to the cabin.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do the hobby then.
After getting literal PTSD from the last time I played on this account, I made it to the cabin. As I entered, I found a mana crystal and consumed it. Mana crystals give you a mana bar with 100 mana at first. Then they increase your mana by 10 each time you consume another one until you reach a maximum of 150 mana. Mana crystals can be found in any spot where you can find loot, so if you want to max out your mana, it's best to keep your eyes open. I then talked to the man on the balcony to get the key to the elevator. This basically eliminated the need to do the platforming for the rest of the playthrough, and also allowed me to descend the cliff without breaking every single bone in my body. After leaving the area, I did a bit of looting and went back to the Grey Garden to sell all of it. There I met a max level who seemed incredibly peaceful. Oh. Probably a misclick. Maybe I should walk faster. Well, I'll count that as a fight that I won, I guess. Now for my next objective, which was to get the scythe. Don't get me wrong, the push daggers can be an incredibly dangerous weapon to fight against, and I'm speaking from experience. But I really liked how the scythe looked, and its abilities were always so cool in my opinion. The first step to getting the scythe was getting the spear. After breaking half of the bones in my legs to get to the hanging village, seriously, someone please tell me a way to get here safely without coming from the bottom, because I've literally never managed to find a way. I then went to the spear vendor and bought the weapon for basically half the money that I had, which is fine since getting money in this game is relatively easy as long as you can stay alive while looting. Now we have one problem here. I can't just walk up to the scythe trainer with a newly purchased spear and expect to get the scythe. So because of this, I had to level up a bit more by violently beating the life out of everything that breathes and photosynthesizes. But before leaving the hanging village, I managed to get one of the rarest items in the game. This picture of that cat. I'm not fucking serious. I found a torn spellbook. Finding and reading one will grant you 3 insight and will give you 1 spell given that you already don't have all of them. So my first spell that I got was Ruinam, which basically pushes away any entity in front of you and is commonly used for trolling. And then I found another spellbook that gave me the spell Prey, which is just a faster and further dash. Then I began my murdering session. I killed a few twigs, almost died to one, and after a few minutes I saw 2 guys fighting what looked like an armored knight. So I went to go help when I realized that it wasn't a player they were fighting. After killing the knight, I received spectral remains. I then followed the other guy who fought it thinking that he knew what to do with it. I followed him for like 5 minutes, and eventually I got jumped, which led to me dying and losing the spectral remains, which I didn't see as much of a loss at the time since I had no idea what to do with it yet. I then found the same guy and still followed him for some reason, which once again led to some bullshit.
Damn, that was unfortunate.
After all of that, I decided that I would try getting the scythe now. I cleared the platforming section easily and went through the maze normally until I took a wrong turn and...
Oh my...
So I decided to fight this thing for a little bit of extra XP and so that it doesn't like jump me from behind. But a few seconds later I was getting my ass handed to me, and I was on less than a quarter of my HP. At this point I had one choice. I had to wait for this thing to finish its combo and then unleash my own combo with a mix of spells and melee. Eventually I flawlessly killed it and went to the scythe trainer to claim my reward. Fuck.
That was a nice miss. That was also a nice miss.
I then came back to the trainer after like one level up, and guess what?
There we go. We got the frickin' scythe.
Now for my next objective, which is a side quest that I found in an area far from the rest of the map. This place is called the Hidden Lands. Firstly, to get to the Hidden Lands, you need to get through the Fragmented Chasm, which is basically one big platforming section that contains a special quest that will most likely scare the shit out of you the first time you do it. Anyways, after a bit of platforming, you will reach a door to the Hidden Lands. The Hidden Lands are the area where you will find a dangerous entity, Daemons. Daemons are entities that wield a scythe, and can teleport every once in a while. You're probably wondering, what makes them so dangerous? Well, not much except for the fact that they will block break you the exact millisecond you try to defend yourself, meaning that you will have to play evasive and take every slim chance to attack. But wait, they can teleport behind you. So make sure that you can pull off a 180, or just pray that the hitbox of your weapon reaches behind you. Also, did I mention that they can use a scythe skill? Even I don't have one yet. Oh yeah, they also don't make a sound when they detect you or when they walk. This basically means they can catch you without a trace and hit you off into the abyss. Yes, I'm speaking from experience right now. Well, enough about Daemons. For now, the quest I'm currently trying to do is the Enhanced Dash quest. To start this quest, go to this lady and she will ask you to kill 3 Daemons and bring their remains to her. I respawned at the cliffside cabin and decided to just kill this golem so I can give its eye to this woman, who tells us a little bit of lore and gives us a permanent upgrade, the Runic Shield. The Runic Shield is just a shield that protects you from one spell before it breaks. Keep in mind it will break by default a few seconds after use if no spell is blocked. I also managed to find some wisp flies, which I then gave to the old man at the cabin in exchange for a lantern. After getting the lantern, I made my way back to the Hidden Lands only to find out that the door was closed and I didn't have the key. On the way back, defeated, I saw 2 guys who had the same problem. It was from them that I learned how I can get the key. I'll probably find it later. I went back to the Scythe Trainer and bought 2 out of the 3 Scythe skills. Vestigial Spirit, which summons a purple skull that revolves your character and damages enemies upon contact, and Curse Reap, which is the same move that the Daemons use when they feel like making you lose all of your loot for no fucking reason. Eventually I augmented my weapon with a Blaze Gem, which basically sets the enemy on fire after a few hits, and then went back to check if the door was open, and it was, so I went back into the Hidden Lands. I tried setting my spawn there, but turns out I need the key to do so. Lovely. And after finally getting the Daemon traces, I went to finish the quest for the price of 500. What the fuck? All just to dash further and possibly lessen the cooldown of dashing. Nice. Adding on to my financial irresponsibility, I went back to the graveyard and discovered a path that took me to the antiquated tower. Inside of the tower was a man who let me regain mana faster outside of combat, and a lady who said she couldn't help me because this was my first lifetime. This guy needed 5 piles of crystal ash, which I already had thankfully, and another 500. Fuck the hell. I then picked up my last scythe ability, Harvest's Embrace, which is basically a slash that teleports you a short distance, and flattened my bank account. Then I went into the Viridian cabins and hopped off for day 1. Hey, Editor Zen here. I have to apologize real quick because the first part of this day's recording did not save, unfortunately. So to give a brief summary of what happened, I augmented my weapon with the Viral Gem, since fire is easier to put out than a virus. I found more mana crystals, which got me to maximum mana. I found another spell book, which gave me the spell Istra. And the thing that I'm most upset about not recording, I got into the Painter's Covenant. Thank you, Editor Zen. To progress the Painter's Covenant, you need Artisan's Insignias, which you have a pretty good chance of obtaining each time you pick up an item. Hand the insignias to the guy who will let you into the Covenant, and your progress will be counted and saved. After a little bit of looting, I managed to get 2 of the abilities of the Covenant. The first ability is a passive that gives you the chance to double each item that you pick up, which could be really useful if it doubles a spell book. The second thing I got was an active ability called Blank Canvas, which is basically a slash that temporarily prevents anyone hit from using magic. So it's not really that useful in PvE, but damage is damage. During another looting session, I managed to find another spellbook which gave me the spell Orray. And I also managed to get the second passive of the Covenant, which allows you to travel through paintings. After doing all that, I then hopped off for the day. I started off the day with a little bit of looting, until I stumbled upon this hole in the fragmented chasm. In this cave, I found a spellbook which doubled due to the passive of the Covenant.
Ah, yes. Times. GG's. Boom. Bam.
These spellbooks gave me the spells Cadia and Vonzol, which were the only two spells that I did not have at the time. Editor's end here, I also forgot to mention that I got a spell called Iskios at some point, which plants a sword into the ground that you can teleport to after a short period of time. I also found an NPC in the cave whose dialogue I actually decided to read for once since I was in a good mood.
Very well. Deep in the den lies the spell. A pedestal.
The NPC tells us that in a cavern there is a pedestal where a memorial ring fits into. However, this cavern is filled with shapeless, terrifying beings, so the NPC needs us to face his fears for him. After backtracking the fragmented chasm a bit, I finally reached the cavern and delved into it. Seconds later, I got to see exactly what he meant. This is a shapeless. It's an unkillable set of eyes which you have to avoid making eye contact with if you don't want to get damaged and hear the terrifying song that plays, which I unfortunately cannot play because it's copyrighted. Thankfully, the one that I unfortunately saw was right next to the peasants. I'm gonna fucking cry. But I did get a bone. Yeah, that's literally it. I then went back to the NPC and gave him the bone, which allowed him to increase my maximum HP by 20. For the cost of 300. Why the hell am I paying you if I did the thing you were too much of a put? Unfortunately, because I want to progress this fully, I have to pay him. Also, one benefit of being in the Painter's Covenant is that I can use painting travel to get to the Hidden Lands even if it's locked. Using this newly found power, I went back to the Hidden Lands and went to an area where I can find another quest. The Hand. On the hand, you can find the lantern guy from earlier's brother hanging off of one of the fingers. This guy will make your lantern bright if you bring him a homestead wrench and 150 coins. I did a bit of leveling up and a bit of exploring and managed to find the Dancer Shrine. Shrines basically give you a buff at the cost of something else. It's like an eye for an eye. However, I didn't have enough info on shrines to decide which one to get on this account, so I left it and hopped off for the day. After a bit of research, I decided that the shrine I would go for was the Wrathful Shrine, which would increase my damage by 5%, but reduce my HP by 2.5%. To get to the shrine, I had to tread through the Far Reach and into the Embrace. The Embrace is a snowy wasteland that continuously depletes your HP as you stay down there, as well as your sanity, since you will begin to hallucinate during your captivity. Notice how I didn't use the word visit? Good years. Because going into the Embrace is a one-way trip where the only way out is death, by suffocation, or by falling into the pits of this hellscape. Thankfully, the Wrathful Shrine was very close to the entrance. Not that it matters since I've basically walked into my own casket, and after praying to it, I got the attributes that are associated with it. I then decided, since I'm already gonna die, I'm gonna just explore a bit of the Embrace. But my exploration was cut short due to my poor spatial awareness. After a bit of farming, I went back to the Embrace, past my previous skill issue, and made my way to the Ashen Maelstrom, which I didn't manage to get down without dying the first time. Eventually I found some Iskios tech that negates fall damage. Also, quick rant real quick. So throughout the entire recording up until this point where I got the Painter's Covenant, I had been killing Abyssal Assassins to try and get their mask, which have a very slight chance of dropping when you kill them. The mask allows you to fall into the void and teleport into this area rather than dying so you can get into the Shadow Covenant. And I just so happened to get one after I joined the Painter's Covenant. So the only real use that the mask had was saving me time on the way out of the hole in the graveyard and giving me insight from discovering a new area. After that tragedy, I decided it was time to hop off for the day. To start the day, I went into the Embrace to finally see what was in that pit. When I reached there, I managed to flawlessly pull off the Iskios tech and made it to the bottom.
Oh my god, that actually scared me.
At the bottom of the pit, I found what I thought was a shrine, but in fact it was a compass of morality. There are two moralities in the game, virtue and sin. The two moralities are complete opposites and require insight to start and to progress them. Ironically though, virtue is hidden deep below the ground and is a complete death sentence to get compared to sin, which is literally on the hand. Now I wasn't done with the Embrace yet, and I'm not saying that because I actually have to progress the path of virtue. I was told of a weapon, deep in the Embrace, the Rapier. I wanted that weapon because the Scythe is the exact weapon that I used on my alt account before unlocking the Great Sword, and I wanted to be as different from my alt as possible on this account. The first step of getting the Rapier was to buy and progress with the sword. After spending 10 minutes walking around aimlessly searching just to realize I could buy the sword right at my spawn point, I bought it and began to beat up everything that I could. I eventually reached level 50 though, which is the maximum level. So essentially, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Okay, you got me. So, because I had a crap ton of money and also needed a way to tell if I practiced enough with the sword, I tried buying all of the sword abilities, but I lacked the experience to get the last one, so I knew I had to do some more killing. The first sword ability is called Counter, which is a counter. The second one is called Regal Slash, which basically makes you do repeated rapid slashes. Despite not having maxed out the sword, I dove into the Embrace in search of the Rapier. I soon met the Rapier trainer within a house in the Embrace and bought the Rapier. Yeah, I did not need to do what I had done already. The Rapier is not only a stylish weapon, but it's also fast enough to let me counterattack twigs in between their attacks. And eventually, after getting the weapon that I would stick to for the rest of this playthrough, I decided to hop off for the day. I started off the day by going into the Embrace. I wanted to see if I could get any of the Rapier skills, but I got lost and ended up dying. I then tried to go back, but the Iskios tech fused with my terrible ping at the time of recording to create this.
What?
I then decided to just make my way there slowly, and I went into the Embrace and got lost yet again, so I decided to end my journey by jumping into a bottomless pit. Okay, round 3. I did another dive and actually found the Rapier trainer, just to be told I don't have enough experience to get any of the skills. Ha ha. Beautiful. Now, because of my frustration and the fact that it's already been 6 days into this recording, I decided it was time to try and finish the playthrough. Huge emphasis on try though, because my ping was once again fumbling everything. Honestly, looking back, I wish my ping stayed bad because the only thing that really changed when it got better was the fact that I could see how badly I'm getting my ass kicked. So after dying, I decided that I'll come back to this another day, and hopped off for the day. By the way, this day was recorded on Christmas Eve. When I started off the day, I realized that my brain doesn't like to see the right side of my screen empty when I pull out a weapon, so the first thing that I did was farm a bunch of enemies for weapon XP, and then go back to the Rapier trainer and I got the first skill, After Slash. I then spent a bit more time killing random things and eventually unlocked the second skill, Embedded Thread, which is basically a punch that attaches the thread to your opponent, which can be used to pull your enemy to you. I then did a bit of goofing off, and went back to upgrade Virtue to tier 2 at the cost of 20 insight. Doing this gave me 10% damage resistance permanently, which could really help with that final boss. After a bit of difficulty, I still didn't have enough experience, and at this point I decided to go back and fight the boss that was stopping me from reaching the final part of the playthrough, since I had planned for this to be a 7-day thing, and since I felt experienced enough in combat to fight this thing this time. Upon entering the arena, I noticed that the boss was not there. I took advantage of this to set my spawn here and skip it to go to the next area. Oh, never mind, I can't. Well, I guess I'll wait. Oh nice, it's here. Meet the Guardian, the final roadblock stopping you from getting to the last area of the game. He's a pretty tough boss since he not only has hyper armor, but his attacks are also very quick. Thankfully though, most of his attacks are blockable. As I prepared myself mentally to fight this thing, I noticed another player stumble into the arena. Together, this player and I fought with all that we had.
Oh my god. Oh no, I'm so sorry, my guy.
The player died. RIP man. But I have to advance. Welcome to Curia, the Lost Temple. Curia is the final area of the game, and is the gateway to the prestige or completion of this playthrough. The first part of this challenge requires the player to push 3 buttons to unlock the path to the next part. The first button is beyond a platforming challenge where you have to tightly hug the wall on most areas to avoid death. After completing it, the player will see the button. Before getting to the second button, I found a library. In the middle of the room was a statue, which gave me something upon interacting with it. I continued and found a room with a tiled floor. Certain tiles had symbols on them. These were to be avoided at all costs since contact with them would basically fling you into the sky, which could lead to you falling into the void. Upon passing the room, I found a second button and another statue, which did the same as the previous one. I then went through a hole in the wall that led to the derelict halls. This labyrinth was littered with turrets that would fire a few seconds after being locked onto your character. To the right of the labyrinth is a room where the floor damaged me once I touched it. Upon realizing this, I retreated back into the labyrinth, thinking that I was missing something. And that was when I found a new type of enemy. This enemy would fire a spell at you every few seconds. And it wasn't the only entity in this area. Look above it. That isn't a statue. That's a swig.
Oh my god.
A swig is basically a twig, but it makes a more sinister laugh when it notices you, and it's made out of stone instead of wood. Yeah, there isn't much difference between twigs and swigs. After killing all of the swigs, I proceeded and saw a transparent figure blocking the path. I approached it and...
I'm dead.
You probably managed to guess why this happened, but if you didn't, let me explain. Remember that room beyond the floor that damaged me? Well, that room had the last statue. The statues are basically the last thing that you need to interact with to enter the final room. You need to activate all 3 of them for this angel to let you past, but since I forgot to activate that one, I was rejected and had to redo the entirety of the temple. I quickly reactivated the statues and made sure to activate the last one this time. After that, I proceeded to the angel and I was let through. Welcome to the final area in Verdant Moon, the Dream Spiral, along with the final enemy you will encounter, yourself. This is the Angelic Shadow. It looks like you, it has the same weapon as you, and it also tries to mimic how you fight, and because of that last fact, I felt very offended at the fact that I beat this thing very easily. After defeating the Angelic Shadow, I proceeded to the same angel that stopped me before. This is Aeon. Aeon asked you to relinquish all your efforts and put an end to Terra's wrath. Upon accepting, Your screen fades, and you have now finished Verdant Moon.